welcome back to another EduMagic Monday, student teaching during COVID. So today I have with me Deborah Osmo, who will be sharing all about practical tips for your first year. And I don't know about you, but that I know I'm so excited to learn from her today. And today, instead of using Padlet like we usually do on our Mondays together, I created a little jam board. I thought we can get our jam on this Monday. And I dropped it there in our chat for you guys to grab a frame if you would like over on our jam board. Frames are what, Google Jamboard calls slides. I see we have an anonymous rhino over there now. Fantastic. And you can grab a frame, claim it as yours, drop a sticky note or a text box or something on there. And what's really nice is since we can't collaborate here in the GoToMeeting space, we can have a space to collaborate here on Jamboard. So if you have questions, comments, ideas, takeaways, please share them over on our Jamboard. At the end of today's session, we will open up questions for Deborah to answer. And also on the first frame of that Jamboard, you can find Deborah over on Instagram. I love her handle, guys, The Purposeful Educator. That is so powerful. And she truly has some fantastic resources for us during our session today. So it's 2 o'clock. Without further ado, Deborah, welcome to our student teacher webinars.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I am super excited to be here and to be part of this. So I'm pumped. Thank you
I'm
so much for
excited to
having
have
me.
you. I'm so excited to have you. And while you're sharing your screen, I'll read your bio really quickly so all of our attendees can get to know you a little more.
Awesome.
All right. So Deborah is a teacher coach and she works to help K to 12th grade teachers find clarity, maximize productivity, and upgrade professionally to boost their careers inside and outside of the classroom. She is the founder of the Purposeful Educator, which is a teacher coaching platform, also known as TPE. She helps teachers find clarity in the purpose and chosen profession, develop a wide range of skills to generate a more productive teaching lifestyle. We all need that, right? And build professional profiles to remain versatile, current, and relevant educators. Deborah, thank you so much for coming on today. And I'm excited. I'm going to mute my mic and I'm going to be a
Thank
listener
you.
today. I'm claiming a frame and I'm going to listen in on this conversation.
All right. Thank you so much. Wow, guys, I'm super excited to be here, to be part of this, and to chat with you guys on some really important topics that unfortunately we need to discuss as per we have been plunged into a situation in education that we have never experienced on this massive of a scale. And it's quite exciting, but also quite scary for a lot of us. So just quickly in the chat box, if you can just pop in your name, tell me if you are a student teaching right now or you're a current student and sorry, you're a current teacher, this is your first year teaching, or basically what position that you're in right now in your teaching career. I would love to know that information. That'd be super, super helpful. And also, I just want to get to know you guys because this is all about collaborating together. This is all about sharing the information that we have with each other so that we can all grow and be successful in our careers as teachers. So definitely pop that information on there. I would love to know more about you guys. So let's dive in so that we don't waste too much of our time. I don't know if I'm able to see the chats. Am I able to see the chats over here?
You are not. You are a panelist, my dear, but I know we have a couple student teachers on the line. We have a
Okay.
couple of higher ed professors on the line. Heyo.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we have
So
a nice
super honored.
group here.
All right. Well, I am definitely honored to be talking to you guys over here. So I'm just going to exit this so that it won't block anything. So let's go ahead. So, like Sam just mentioned, my name is Deborah Osmo, and yes, my last name might be a little bit difficult to pronounce. My students usually just call me Miss O after 5 times of basically murdering my name. The first 5 tries that they tried. So I usually just go by Miss O when I'm in the classroom. but my name is Deborah Osmo. And I just want to quickly just start off with a quote. In my teaching career, personally, this is just a personal preference of mine, but I have always led my teaching career with quotes that encourage my insight into what I'm doing and that encourage kind of like the focus that I have. And that's what I usually share with my teacher clients. And that's what I want to share with you guys as well. And hopefully, maybe some of you would adapt this a little tradition of mine, but also I just want to share them with you because they are encouraging and they are things that we can carry around with us, especially when we're in the deep, deep, dark waters that are hard to navigate. So I just want to start us off with this little quote. I have no idea who said this, but they said, "Only the brave teach." And that is the truest statement of education that I have ever come across in my life. Only the brave teach, because as teachers, I usually say we are the most versatile career path on the planet. We have to be, sometimes we have to be computer geniuses, all right, especially in this phase of life. Sometimes we have to be psychiatrists. Sometimes we have to act as parents or at least guardians to some of our students, or as much as we can. Without crossing the line, of course. Sometimes we have to be everything to our students and even to our coworkers as well. And so for that to be your career path, for that to be your profession, you have to be brave. It's like stepping into the road and with a blindfold on, you're in the highway and you're just crossing the highway, hoping that nothing is going to hit you as you're crossing the highway that is very, very busy. So, just as an encouragement, only the brave teach. So, you being a part of this career path, you being in this profession, you are brave. Okay. And I just want to encourage you with that statement. So let's get head on. All right, so just a little introduction. I know Sam did a little bit, but I just wanted to pop in and just chat a little bit about who I am, so you get to know me on a at least a little deeper level. I am a teacher. I'm certified TEA. I am also a teacher career coach. I am an NYU graduate student, or candidate, should I say, at the moment, and I have also been granted the opportunity to have authored an article that was published at Columbia University, which is a very exciting feat for me, and definitely proud of that. And my focus as a teacher career coach is that I help teachers find clarity in what they are doing. I help them maximize productivity skills and tasks, and I help them to upgrade their professional lives, the professional side of the teaching career that is usually not talked about, not elaborated on for so many teachers out there. And we usually have to go out on our own and navigate those waters when, sometimes we don't have to. And we need that kind of education too. So I help teachers upgrade professionally so that the ultimate goal is for you to boost your career and for them to boost their career. So that's kind of what I do as a teacher career coach. So today I want to talk to you guys about the first year teacher point of view. I kind of love talking about this. I kind of shared a little bit about my experience with Sam on our little chat when she interviewed me for her podcast. And I just want to share with you the top 5 things you should keep in mind. But before we go into that, I just want to share with you a very brief summary of what my first year teaching experience was like, and how it helped me kind of come up with these 5 things that I think that are super important, super practical, and honestly, I noticed that a lot of people don't usually talk about when they see first year teachers or know teachers that are heading into their first year. And so these are kind of things that I want to touch upon. But for me, during my first year of teaching, I would say yes, it was definitely the hardest year of my life. And a lot of teachers would attest to that fact. But for me, it was kind of different because I had entered into my first year teaching position after school had already started. Okay, this was me coming in a month or a month and a half after school had already begun for everyone. If you live in areas like Texas, school usually starts around the third week of August. And if you live around New York, school usually starts around September. And at that time, I was in Texas, and schools had already begun. People had already gone through all of the teacher development sessions that they needed to cover before school began. People had time to decorate their classrooms. People had time to set up their standards and basically everything that they needed to hit the ground running. Right? I had none of this, zero, and that was difficult because I was also being plunged into a fifth grade classroom. And if you are a middle school teacher, or if you have taught middle school, or as a student teacher, if you are currently student teaching in a middle school classroom, you would know that middle schoolers have an attitude. Okay, you have to be able to speak the language of middle school in order to survive or succeed in middle school. And coming in as a new teacher, first time in the ride of teaching, and when school had already begun, yeah, in middle school, that was hard. So that was my personal experience, and I had to navigate those waters coming in late. I literally had a week to observe. I'm thankful that I had a week to observe my own classroom and my students. I had a week to observe the substitute teacher that was there and how she had structured things and what I would need to change or what I would need to keep. I had a week to meet my coworkers. We worked as a team. I had a team and I also had a pod, and I had time to meet them and to chat with them a little bit. And mind you, all the students' resources had already been shared. The materials we asked them to bring to school and all of that. So it had already been shared, all of that. All right. And I basically had nothing. And I'm also broke because I just graduated college. Okay. And it was difficult because I had to navigate all of these things. I had to understand all of the tasks that I had in front of me. I had to meet everyone. I had to learn how to navigate the school building. I didn't have my car with me because it was in a completely different location than where I was living. So I had to move during that time. And honestly, it was the grace of God that got me through that entire year, I like to say, but it was a feat. And I literally hit the ground running my first year, and I had to adapt to so many things all at the same time. And I had to come in as a professional because I had convinced these people that I am a professional and I can do this. And so the first year of teaching can be exhausting, it can be tiring, it can be trying. It's a trial and error. It's where you either make it or break it in when we think about your teaching career. So I want to share with you guys these top 5 things that I learned during this whole entire process and that I've carried along with me throughout my entire teaching career since then. By the way, if you have any questions, definitely pop them in the chat. I'm sure Sam can see them. I can't. But if you have any questions so far for me or for the topics that I'm sharing, definitely pop them in the question box so that I can answer them later, or you can hold them and then we can chat about it later. But here's another quote. To this end, the greatest asset of a school is the personality of the teacher. John Strachan. And this quote was the literal sense of my first year teaching. Okay, I learned not the hard way, thankfully, but I learned from different points of view how this comes into effect and how this can affect you even in a personal way for me too, as a first year teacher and as a teacher entirely. Your personality towards your job, towards your purpose in the classroom, towards your students, everything counts. And it can be the greatest asset of a school. It's what makes a school or breaks a school, regardless of whether the school has the best facilities in the world or they don't. And that is just the honest truth. So the first of the top 5 things is that you're new to this. if you are a student teacher or if you are a new teacher, you are new to this, and that is completely okay. And if you are not a new teacher, if you are currently teaching, it's still okay that you don't know everything. Nobody knows everything. Everybody cannot be prepared for every single thing that can pop up. And when we talk about, surprises in education, as teachers, surprises is a daily expectancy. You need to expect surprises on a daily basis. If you're not expecting a surprise or something to just pop up out of the blue, then you may not be ready to step into this career path. But it is completely okay. Nobody expects you to know everything. Even as a student teacher right now, nobody expects you to know everything. But that doesn't mean that you can't try. All right. I always say this. It doesn't mean that you can't try to learn from a mistake that you had maybe later during the day. It doesn't mean that you can't try to learn from a mistake that you witnessed another coworker having. It doesn't mean that you can't learn from a successful experience that somebody else had, or a testimony that somebody had, or a student even. It doesn't mean that you can't learn, but I'm telling you that nobody expects you to know everything. So let that pressure just go off right now, because if you keep that pressure on, it limits you. It limits your ability to think outside of the box and be creative and actually accomplish things. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Yes, nobody expects you to know everything. Yes, that doesn't mean you shouldn't try, but don't put too much pressure on yourself. You're not perfect. Nobody is perfect, and nobody expects you to be perfect. Yes, there may be those few people in the world that are basically perfect in everything they do, or look or seem perfect in everything they do, but I can tell you they are not, okay? They are in the same boat as you. What they have going for them is that they are focusing on what they can do, and they are perfecting that as they work on what they are weak in. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. Work on the things continuously that you are good at, perfect them, and don't neglect the things that you are your weakest at. Take time to identify them, even if it means asking your coordinating teacher. If you are a student teacher, even if it means asking them questions about you yourself, to know you more. Because I tell you, somebody's perspective of you as a teacher, of the way that you do things, can be crucial in your teaching career. I'll give you a short example. Um, as a student teacher, I was a student teacher in an elementary kindergarten classroom. All right. And I love kindergarten. I love the whole experience. I love how much a teacher gets to do in that space. I love the age group. I loved everything. But as a person, my personality does not fit very well with 5-year-olds. And that's because I now have accepted that I can be an impatient person. I can be very impatient. And sometimes that does not come off well, especially with 5-year-olds who need the whole entire patience that you can possibly give to them. And my coordinating teacher noticed that about me. It wasn't that it was terrible or awful. It wasn't that I was horrible to the students or anything, but her perspective of my type of personality really impacted me, because she called me aside one day and was like, "Hey, Debbie, do you realize that you could be perfect in middle school?" And I was like, "What? No, like, middle school? I had never thought of middle school. Anytime somebody said middle school, I would run away. Yeah, because I knew like middle schoolers have attitude, and I don't have the energy. That's what I thought, at least. And so she was like, "Your personality fits middle school perfectly, because I taught middle school for years. I know what they're like, and I think you would be great in middle school." And I was like, "What?" And thankfully for me, I didn't put that comment in the trash. I took it with me. I thought over it, and I reflected on that, especially when I was applying for positions. And I was like, okay, you know what? Let me try it out. My heart was set on kindergarten, but I was like, no, let me try it out. Let me see. And out of all of the, schools I applied to and positions and everything, it was middle school that I got. And I as soon as I landed in that classroom, I felt at home, okay, with those students, even with their attitude and all of that. I was like, yes, this is my jam. I can do this, and even though I hit the ground running at a very late stage, um, it was like I had been doing this for a while. I just merged into it and that was great. So, honestly, don't put too much pressure on yourself. If you find yourself in a grade level teaching a subject area that you just don't like, or you're finding too difficult, absurdly difficult, maybe it's time to sit down and reflect. Maybe it's time to ask somebody what they think. Maybe it's time to see and test other waters, to see where you can be much more successful in, and where you can make the most impact. Give yourself time to learn and adjust. As a new teacher, especially as a student teacher, everything is new. Everything is new. The classroom, the students, the processes, the standards, everything that you have to keep track of, the paperwork, the mountains and mountains and mountains of paperwork, okay, what you're responsible for, contacting parents, creating lessons, and actually presenting those lessons. Those are two very different things, by the way. Organization, so much. It's a lot to process, okay? And you need to give yourself time to learn. You need to give yourself time to find out what your rhythm is, what your own process is, what works for you, what works for your classroom, what works for your students, okay? And even as a student teacher right now, observe what your coordinating teacher is doing. How is her process or his process? Ask them questions as to how they got there. Did they just wake up one morning and it landed in for them, or did it take time? Like, how do they know what works for them? How do they know what works for their age group? Give yourself time to learn, and also give yourself time to adjust, because it's not everything that you can mold and turn to fit your own personal needs. It's not everything, because your first and foremost focus is your students' needs. And sometimes you have to do things that you're not comfortable doing on a daily basis, but because of your students, you have to do it that way. And so you need to give yourself time to learn and adjust all those processes, so that you can find much more success in what you're doing in the classroom. And the whole, gloom of, feeling like you're failing, or feeling like you just can't do it, begins to evaporate, and you can see clearly into what you're doing. And lastly, don't be closed minded. Okay, flexibility is key when it comes to being a teacher. If you are not flexible, this is the perfect time to learn to be flexible, especially if you are student teaching right now. Learn how to be flexible, even if it means asking your coordinating teacher for assignments that you personally don't like to do. Ask, okay? Because you never know. You may be put in a spot, in a situation where you have to whip up something in 5 minutes and present. Example, I'm going to give you two examples right now. As a student teacher, I was put in a situation where I was observing another classroom, and I was asked to present a lesson, a mini lesson, on the spot. I had not prepared anything. I had no clue what was going on. So I had to think on my feet. I had to run to the teacher and ask, okay, what is your class learning right now? Okay, what subject are they transitioning into? And then I had to think, okay, if they're learning this particular topic, they were learning measurements, okay, and they were going into science. So I was like, okay, perfect. Temperature. We can talk about temperature. I had to whip up a 15-minute lesson there and then. I had to use the whiteboard and marker because I didn't have time to prepare anything. I had to come up with a lesson, a little game that could play to understand the information, and then recap in like 5 minutes. So you need to learn how to be flexible, okay? Flexibility is key when it comes to teaching, and this can also happen to you if you are a first-year teacher as well. What if something goes wrong with the big lesson you planned? You have to think on your feet so that you can adjust to the situation and be able to move on with your lesson, and so that your students can learn what they need to learn. So don't be closed minded in the classroom and outside of the classroom. It's super important. All right. The second tip that I'm giving you out of the 5 things is 3 action steps, okay, that build stamina. The first step actually is to observe others. Like I mentioned before, observing others can give you so much insight into what you are supposed to do and how you can develop as a teacher yourself, how you can build your own skills, but also how you as a teacher can present your lessons in a much more effective way that will help your students succeed. All right. So observe others. The best way to learn and adapt as a new teacher is to learn on your feet. Okay. You have to adjust yourself to that, especially if you're someone that is used to learning just with books or things like that. You have to learn with your eyes when it comes to teaching. And that can be very effective as a first year teacher. As a first year teacher, when I landed into my position and I was fresh out of water in college, and of course, like I said before, I was in that position after the school year began. I had to observe my pod, the teachers that I was working alongside with, the math teacher, the science teacher, the social studies teacher, because I was the reading teacher. I had to observe what they were doing with the students, how they communicated with the students, because we were all sharing the same students. Okay, because they had known them for 6 weeks before me. I had to observe how they talked with each one. I had to observe if how they communicated with students that had certain disabilities, learning disabilities, how they communicated with them. I had to take the time to chat with these teachers to get hints of what to do. But observing is crucial, especially when you are landed in a situation that you cannot control or you that is out of your control. Observation can get you answers. It can get you solutions that don't cost much and that can help you soar through that problem or situation perfectly well. The second one is to experiment. You learn a lot about your strengths, your weaknesses, your go tos as a teacher, your own interests, your abilities, your personality, and your endurance levels during your first year. Which is why experimenting is crucial. I always encourage people to experiment. People are afraid of experimenting when they're first year teachers. They think they have to be perfect. But like I said before, nobody is perfect, okay? And nobody is expecting you to be perfect, okay? I'm not saying they are expecting you to fail. They believe in you, they believe in your abilities, but they're not coming off as, oh, you have to make sure that all of your students, like if you're a reading teacher, make sure all of your students are at a perfect reading score or things like that. No, nobody's expecting you to do magic, but they do expect something from you. And in order for you to experiment and find what works for you, you do have to experiment. Sorry, I used the same word twice, but that is just the truth. And I had to do that, especially when it came to classroom management for me, because I was not there, at the beginning of the school year. It took me a bit to get my students under control and get a classroom management system that worked perfectly with them. But I had to experiment. I had to go through certain different tactics and processes to see what worked and what stuck. And sometimes you have to do that and you have to be flexible to do that. So that's just an example. But think of the very many things that you would be needing to do as a first year teacher and to learn. And in order to do that, you need to experiment and you need to find out what works for you so that in the subsequent years, okay, you have a process, you have something that you have a layout, a foundation, a plan that works for you and that works for the students that you teach. And then the last one is ask for help. Okay, there is no shame in seeking assistance, guidance, or insight from others when you need it. Okay, ask for help, guys. I made a mistake my first year. I didn't ask for help on anything. And so I was trying to figure everything out on my own when there were plenty of people I could ask. Okay, there were my pod mates, okay? There was my ELA team that I could have talked to several times, okay? There was our ELA lead that I could have sought for insight on different things Okay, so many people that I could have asked for help. One big thing I was struggling with was how to put in grades in the system that we were using because I had never used that system entirely in my life. I'd never seen it before. That was the first time I saw that system, and I was trying to navigate it by myself. Who does that? Okay. Sometimes we teachers, we try to, because we feel like we have to be superheroes, we try to be superheroes and everything. And sometimes, even the superhero has a sidekick. Sometimes the superhero even has a whole massive team behind them doing the very many different things that they can't do. Okay. And as a teacher, yes, you can be a superhero too. You are a superhero, but that doesn't mean that you don't have people to lean on. It doesn't mean that you don't have a team or a sidekick or whatever. So lean on those people. Ask them for help. Ask them for assistance. Ask them for help to guide you in whatever aspect of your job, okay, requirement that you don't understand. Okay. Even my contract, I didn't even. This is a mistake that you should never make, especially for you first year teachers. Don't make this mistake. And personally, I didn't think it was a mistake at the time because I had already researched the school I was working at and I knew the payment, salary levels, and all of that. But I didn't even read my contract before I signed it. Like, who does that? Okay, read your contract. Find friends of yours or family members who have read contracts before. Let them read it with you before you sign it. Let them explain things to you that you don't know. There were so many things in my contract that I didn't know about until like towards the end of the year. And oh my gosh, it was just, yes. So it didn't impede my work. It didn't impede my salary or anything like that. But it's really good to know this kind of stuff, okay, before you get into a new job or before you get into your teaching position. So ask for help. It's super important.
Deborah, loved how you gave us permission to not be perfect. Nobody is expecting you to be perfect your first year out. And I wish that was something that I knew as a first year teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I that part really spoke to me. And the part about you're new to this, and that's okay. And I just think that whenever before we started to hit record, Deborah, you said this is something that we're going to go back to basics. And you are absolutely right. It truly is going back to basics. It's okay to be new. It's okay to make mistakes, but you got to own up to them. You got to reflect on those, observe others, ask for help. Oh my goodness. And you gave us so many examples from student teaching to your first year.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, Deborah, what a first year. I cannot imagine what you went through.
Yeah.
Would you mind sharing how all of our audience members can connect with you today? I put your Instagram over in our chat for people to find, but I would
Okay.
love for everyone to learn more about where they can connect with you.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so uh, yes, Instagram is the best place to reach me. Honestly, if you are wanting to connect with me, Instagram is totally where I am most of the time, and that is, I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's at the Purposeful Educator, and you can reach me on there. You can also check out my website. The link is also on my Instagram. It's everywhere that I appear, and it has all of the information. You can join my free the Purposeful Educator Network, and I give out great stuff for free on that network. So you can join in through that website link as well, and so much more. So yeah, and lastly, if you are an email person, you can definitely reach me at Deborah at thepurposefuleducator.co. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Deborah. This was a fantastic webinar. And friends, I can't wait to see you next week when we're going to talk about Instagram, your new teacher bestie. I will see you guys on next Monday. Until then,